Look, I'm about to talk about something that makes people uncomfortable. Not because it's hateful, because it's honest. And if you're a man in your late 30s, 40s, or 50s, you've probably seen it happening in real time. Here's the pattern: average men, not millionaires, not celebrities, not models, are suddenly getting messages from women who wouldn't have given them the time of day 10 or 15 years ago. Women who, in their 20s and early 30s, filtered hard. Women who had strict requirements. Women who treated dating like a constant upgrade hunt. Now, some of those same women are reaching out first. They're warmer, more flexible, more open, more serious. And a lot of men don't know what to make of it. They think, did I finally make it? Did I finally become attractive? Is this my glow up moment? So let me ask you a simple question. When did you become more attractive? Was it at 42, when you had less hair than you did at 25? Was it when your metabolism slowed down? Was it when you picked up stress lines from a decade of deadlines and responsibility? Was it after years of long hours, bills, pressure, and sleep you never fully caught up on? If we're talking purely physical attraction, most men don't peak at 42. So what changed? You didn't suddenly become the dream. The market changed. And once you understand what happened, you'll never interpret this sudden attention the same way again. Because what you're watching isn't a miracle, it's a correction. And like every correction, it creates winners and losers, especially for the men who were ignored during the earlier phase. Let me paint the picture with an analogy that makes it obvious. Imagine a marketplace. On one side, you have buyers. On the other, you have sellers. For years, the buyers had all the power. They could be extremely selective. They could reject 95% of what was available and still have plenty of options. They could demand premium quality at average prices. They could say next with zero consequences because supply was abundant. Attention was abundant. Competition was abundant. Then something shifts. Supply decreases. Demand stays the same. And now those buyers aren't powerful anymore. Now they're competing with each other for what's left. Now they're messaging first. Now they're making exceptions. Now they're negotiating. Not because they suddenly matured, because the leverage moved. That is the dating market for women over 40 in a lot of modern environments. And that's why average men are suddenly getting attention they never got before. Now, before anyone starts screaming in the comments, understand what I'm saying. I'm not claiming every woman does this. I'm not saying women are villains. I'm saying the incentives change with time. And people respond to incentives more than they respond to ideals. That's not misogyny. That's human behavior. Now let's walk through how this tends to play out. We'll use a fictional example because it makes the structure easier to see. Call her Jessica. Jessica is 25. She's early career. Maybe she's working entry-level marketing or HR or something similar. She's not rich. She's not established. She's living with roommates. She drives a normal car. Her life is still forming, but online, her dating reality looks completely different. On dating apps, she can match with men far above her in age and income. Doctors, lawyers, finance guys, entrepreneurs, men with property, men who are tall, men who look like they have their life together, men who can take her to expensive restaurants and cover the bill without blinking, men who are 35 or 40 and already built. And because she's young and attractive, these men will often take her out. Here's what happens next. This creates an illusion that breaks a lot of people long term because she starts confusing access with eligibility. She thinks, if I can match with this man, if I can get a date with this man, then this must be my tier. These must be the men I deserve. But what she doesn't understand yet is one of the most important laws of modern dating. Attention is not commitment. A man's willingness to spend time with you is not a man's willingness to build with you. A man's attraction to you does not automatically translate into long-term selection, especially when he has options. Those successful men in their 30s and 40s, many of them are dating her casually. They enjoy her company. They enjoy her youth. They enjoy the fact that she's fun, optimistic, low complication, no divorce history, no custody schedule, no emotional scars from long-term conflict, no accumulated distrust, no hard edges, just a young woman, light energy, low baggage. But Jessica doesn't experience it as casual. She experiences it as proof, matches, dates, texting, attention, stories for her friends, pictures, validation. And the subconscious conclusion becomes, this is what I can get. So when an average guy her age shows real interest, 27 years old, decent job, normal car, stable life, someone who would actually commit, she filters him out. Not tall enough, not ambitious enough, not exciting enough, not the lifestyle, not the spark. And why wouldn't she? At 25, she has volume, hundreds of matches, new attention every day. She can afford to be selective because the cost of being selective feels low. She doesn't feel urgency yet. She doesn't feel consequences yet because time still feels infinite at 25. This is where the filtering gets extreme, and it's not always consciously cruel. It's often just the logic of abundance. When you have too many options, you become more selective by default. So the filters appear: height filters, income filters, status filters, lifestyle filters, narrow, type. And here's the part that matters. When you filter down to the top few percent of men, you are competing for men who know they are the top few percent. Those men have leverage. Those men are not starving for attention. Those men can date across a wider range of ages. Those men don't have to commit early. They can postpone commitment indefinitely, and many of them do. Now fast forward. Jessica is 32. She's doing better professionally. She's more established. Maybe she makes more money now. She has a nicer apartment, better clothes, more life experience. But the dating market has shifted, and she didn't notice it at first. Those men in their late 30s and 40s who were taking her out when she was 25. Many of them are now dating women in their mid to late 20s. Jessica is no longer the youngest option. She's no longer the fresh start option. She's competing with women 5 to 7 years younger who have exactly what she had at 25. Youth, optimism, lower complication, more time. So the matches slow down. The quality of matches shifts. The men messaging her are not quite the caliber she got used to. And here's the key point. Her standards often don't adjust as fast as her leverage does, because her self-perception is anchored to the peak attention years. She remembers what she used to attract, so she assumes that level is still her baseline. And when reality doesn't match that expectation, she reaches for explanations that protect the ego. Where are all the good men? Men are intimidated. Men don't want commitment. Dating is trash. Sometimes those statements contain partial truth, but often they're a shield against the simpler explanation. The market moved, and she didn't recalibrate. Now, somewhere between 36 and 40, the shift becomes impossible to ignore. Not because she suddenly becomes a different person, because the environment forces different decisions. If she wants children, time becomes real, not as a fear tactic, as a logistics, as biology, as a practical constraint that changes priorities. Even if she doesn't want kids, she faces another reality. The men she was filtering for are increasingly partnered, cautious, or dating younger. The pool didn't just shrink, it changed shape. The men she wants are rarer, and the competition for them is tougher. So she starts widening her filters. She becomes more flexible. And that's when a lot of men start getting messages. Men she ignored at 25, men she passed on at 30, men who were stable but not flashy, men who were decent but not the fantasy, men who didn't have the perfect stats. Now suddenly, she's open. And this is the moment many men misunderstand. They think it's about them leveling up. Sometimes it is. If you built your life, got in shape, fixed your finances, developed confidence, yes, your value improved. But the bigger shift is not that you became irresistible, it's that her alternatives became less available. And those are not the same thing. Here's the economic explanation. In any market, value is determined by supply and demand. In the dating market, age changes both. Women tend to have peak leverage earlier because youth is heavily rewarded in attraction markets. Men tend to gain leverage later if they build resources, stability, confidence, and competence. This isn't a moral statement, it's a pattern. Different traits rise and fall in value at different times. And modern dating apps amplify this because they turn dating into constant comparison, constant filtering, constant, maybe there's better. So, what does that mean in real life? It means that in your 20s, you may have been competing against older, established men. You were younger, less resourced, less confident, less socially powerful. So women had more leverage. They could be picky. They could delay. Commitment. They could sample. And you felt invisible. That's the reality for a lot of average men. But if you're an average man in your 40s who built something, stable career, decent money, health, social competence, you are no longer competing the same way. Your dating pool expands, not necessarily because you're a superstar, but because your stability and maturity become more valuable traits. And because some women in your age range are now competing for fewer men who meet their standards, so their standards adjust. And suddenly, you feel noticed. Now let's make this personal with an example you've probably seen. Call him Mike. Mike is 43. He's not a celebrity. He's not rich. He's just solid, stable job, decent income, normal life. In his 20s, he got almost no attention. He would message women and get ghosted. Dates were rare. Relationships were rarer. He felt like he was always outside the club, looking in. Now at 43, women message him. First, women with degrees, women with careers, women who are attractive and accomplished. And Mike is confused. He thinks something magical happened. He thinks he became the man. Here's what I told a guy like Mike once. Look at yourself at 25 and at 43. You're not more physically attractive now. You're just more viable relative to what women in your age range are facing. Your stability matters more. Your consistency matters more. Your ability to lead matters more. And their options, especially the specific options they wanted, are less available. So you look better by comparison, not because you turned into a different species, because the environment changed the math. Now here's the part men must understand before they make expensive mistakes. Not all interest is the same. A woman can be interested in you because she desires you, or she can be interested in you because you represent the best available option. Those two forms of interest feel different over time. They behave differently under stress. They behave differently after the honeymoon period. They behave differently when life gets boring. And if you can't tell the difference, you can end up paying for it. So what should you watch for? not to demonize anyone, to protect yourself, because you're not 25 anymore. You don't get unlimited resets. You have assets. Time matters. Mistakes are expensive. Here are the signals that her interest may be more timeline driven than desire driven. She's in a hurry. She's pushing commitment very fast, talking about moving in quickly, bringing up marriage early, pressing for big steps before real intimacy and trust are built. That urgency isn't always about you. Sometimes it's about a deadline in her head. She openly describes a type that isn't you. I usually date taller men. I usually go for more adventurous guys. I normally like more successful men. If she's telling you this, she's telling you the truth. You are not her natural preference pattern. You are her practical selection. That doesn't mean she can't develop love, but it means you should not confuse her urgency with admiration. She settles visibly, not in words. In energy, you can feel it. She's disappointed when your lifestyle is practical instead of impressive. She recalibrates her expectations downward constantly, not because she's flexible and mature, because she's grieving the fantasy, and grief often turns into resentment. She compares a lot. Ex-boyfriends, other couples, friends who married earlier, the life she imagined versus the life she has. This is the danger zone, because when a person sees you as the symbol of compromise, they don't always treat you with gratitude. They treat you like the receipt for their missed opportunities, and that's not a role you want. This leads to a reality a lot of men don't anticipate. When people settle, consciously, they often resent the settling, even if they don't admit it, even if they're trying to be positive, because every compromise feels like proof of a personal loss. And since most people can't face their own choices cleanly, that resentment gets displaced. It doesn't go inward, it goes outward. It gets directed at the nearest symbol, which can become you. I've seen this dynamic. A woman looks at friends who married at 28 to normal men, average men. Not perfect, but they grew together, built together. Now at 40, that couple has a home, a bond, family routines, stability, shared memories that can't be replicated quickly. And she realizes she could have had that too. But she didn't choose it. She kept searching for an upgrade. So now the average man she finally chooses becomes a reminder of what she lost. And reminders don't always get treated kindly. Now, add another layer: divorce and children. If you're dating a divorced woman, over 40, that ex husband remains part of the ecosystem. Not because she's bad, because life is real. Shared custody, shared history, shared finances, shared stress. Even with healthy co parenting, there is permanent entanglement, and that affects your relationship whether you want it to or not. Your relationship will often be evaluated against a past marriage, not objectively, emotionally. Memory is selective. People romanticize what's gone, even when it was toxic. So you can find yourself competing with a highlight reel while you're living the daily reality. Schedules, boundaries, stress, kids first, your time always second. The ex having access through the kids, the financial complexity, sometimes support payments, sometimes legal tension, sometimes unresolved trauma, and you inherit some of that emotional residue. Every argument isn't just about the argument. It's about patterns. It's about old wounds. It's about defenses that were built long before you showed up. Again, not to blame her, to tell you what you're signing. Because men get destroyed when they sign contracts they didn't read. Now, let's talk about what this means for you as a man in your 40s. If you're suddenly getting attention you never got before, here's the key truth. You may not be her dream. You may be her reality. And there is a difference. Being someone's genuine desire feels like expansion. It feels like respect. It feels like admiration. It feels like she actually likes you, not just what you can provide. Being someone's practical selection can feel like pressure, timeline talk, rushing, subtle disappointment, comparison, a sense that you're being measured, a sense that you're expected to deliver a life that compensates for what she believes she missed. That is a heavy role, and many men accept it because they're flattered to finally be chosen. Do not let flattery blind you. Now, does that mean you should reject every woman over 40? No, that would be childish. There are incredible women over 40, mature, accountable, supportive, self aware. Women who learned, grew, and can build something real. The point isn't avoid women. The point is stop being naive about why you're suddenly being noticed and stop rewarding desperation with commitment. The power shift you're experiencing is real. And for the first time in your life, you may actually have leverage. Not to be cruel, to be selective, to choose wisely, to demand mutual respect and real attraction, not just urgent selection, to require peace, not drama, to require gratitude, not entitlement, to require partnership, not extraction. This is where a lot of men get it wrong. They spend their 20s and 30s starving for attention. So when attention arrives in their 40s, they treat it like water in a drought. They drink without checking if it's clean. They commit fast because they don't want to. Lose the first person who finally sees them. And that is how men with assets and stability walk into the most expensive mistake of their life. They confuse being chosen with being desired. They confuse urgency with admiration. They confuse acceptance with genuine attraction. So here are the questions a smart man asks. Would she have been interested 10 or 15 years ago? Is her interest based on who I am or what I represent? Do I feel genuine attraction from her, or do I feel negotiation? Is she curious about me, or is she assessing my utility? Is she building with me, or is she trying to lock me down? Does she respect my boundaries, or does she pressure them? Does she bring peace, or does she bring deadlines? Now let's address the part men think but don't say. Some men in their 40s realize dating younger can be easier. Not only because of looks, because of dynamics. A younger woman often has fewer entanglements. No ex-husband in the background. No custody. Schedule. Usually less accumulated cynicism. More time to build. Less urgency. Less comparison to what could have been. Often more appreciation for a man who is established, because to her, your average stability is impressive. To some women your age, it's treated as the minimum. Again, not a moral statement, a pattern. And it's one reason many successful men date younger. It's not just physical, it's that the relationship can develop without the pressure of regret. But here's the important caution. Dating younger isn't automatically better. It introduces different challenges, different maturity levels, different life stages, different priorities. The point isn't younger is best. The point is you have options now, and options should make you smarter, not reckless. Your options at 40 typically include 3 lanes. Lane 1, date women your age. That can work well with the right woman, but vet carefully. Watch for resentment. Watch for urgency. Watch for bitterness. Watch for entitlement. Choose character over chemistry. Lane 2, date younger women if you're truly established and aligned, not to exploit, to build something healthier, but only if your values and timelines match. Only if you're not trying to buy youth to avoid growth. Lane 3, stay single. Keep your peace. Build your life. Invest your resources into your health, your purpose, your friendships, your freedom. Because you don't owe anyone a relationship. And if none of the options improve your life, the strongest move is to not play. What matters is that you choose consciously, not out of ego, not out of revenge fantasies, not out of bitterness, out of clarity, out of standards, out of self respect. Now, here's the truth that makes everyone uncomfortable, but it's real. Dating markets operate on incentives, and incentives shift with age. Traits rise and fall in value in different phases. Youth is rewarded. Stability is rewarded. Beauty is rewarded. Resources are rewarded. Confidence is rewarded. And modern technology amplifies this because it makes the comparison instant and constant. People don't choose based on character first anymore. They choose based on what they think they can get until reality forces a correction. That's what you're seeing. So if you're a man in your 40s and women who ignored you are suddenly noticing you, don't turn it into an ego trip. And don't turn it into a hatred campaign either. Turn it into a strategic moment because you finally have leverage. And leverage is useless if you waste it on the wrong deal. Let me put it as cleanly as possible. There's a profound difference between being chosen because someone genuinely wants you and being chosen because their alternatives disappeared. Both can lead to a relationship, but only one tends to lead to respect. Only one tends to lead to peace. Only one tends to lead to a woman who actually appreciates you, not just the stability you represent. And you deserve to be someone's genuine choice, not their late game compromise, not their panic plan, not their good enough before time runs out. You deserve genuine attraction and genuine respect. And at 40, for the first time in your life, you may have enough leverage to require it. So use it wisely. Don't let sudden attention cloud your judgment. Don't confuse messages with loyalty. Don't confuse urgency with love. Don't trade your peace for a relationship that feels like pressure. Choose the woman who chooses you cleanly, the woman who respects you, the woman who brings peace, not resentment, the woman who wants you, not just what you can provide. Because once you understand how the market actually works, you can't unsee it. And that knowledge changes everything about how you date, how you commit, and what you're willing to accept from people who finally notice you after ignoring you for years. The market shifted. You have options. Now the only question is whether you have standards.